Good morning. It's Byron here from ETA Wheels, and this morning we are going to make something very simple called a breakfast fajita. I screwed up the omelet. That ended up being a disaster, but that's okay because I ended up turning it into an omelet sandwich. So just because something doesn't go perfect doesn't mean it's bad. So we're going to throw a little bit of oil in here. All right, just a little bit. Not a whole lot. We're trying the top-down perspective just to see how that works. Maybe. There we go. A little bit less heat there. So what we're gonna do, first off, this is not really a fajita, I guess you could say. It's just kind of a fajita-like object that you can have with breakfast. It's fairly healthy, it's fairly clean. What we have is beef with a little bit of seasoning salt, a little bit of lemon pepper, a little bit of black pepper, and of course fajita seasoning. And then you just let it sit overnight, and then you chop it up like I have. You don't want to go too big with the slices. Got a little bit of chopped green chili with some chopped brown onion and just a little bit of smoked paprika drizzled over the top. Got a couple of eggs. We got some flour tortillas because that's what I have. This is all about making do with what you got. No need to go buy fancy ingredients. We'll get a nice coat of oil around in there. Now, when you're doing this, you're gonna wanna cook the eggs first. And you're gonna wanna cook the eggs first because they cook the fastest and you don't want a dry, rubbery egg for your breakfast burrito. I'm gonna show you how we do that. We're gonna crack the egg. Get a little chunk of shell. Let's get him out. And you're just going to take a little fork and whip it good. That's it. I mean, you can get all fancy and add a little bit of milk to it if you want, just to kind of, you know, make it a little more fluffy or something like that. I'm not really worried about it. I'm just worried about cooking it. We're going to throw that in our nice hot pan. And because this is a little bit of a scramble, we're just going to go ahead and kind of fold it up. I don't know how you guys like your scrambled eggs. Maybe my two favorite people, Mr. Pandar, Mr. Llama. Maybe you guys can give me a little feedback. And hopefully I'm not steaming out the camera, but that's it. That's all it takes. So those are some nice, relatively decent scrambled eggs. We're going to go ahead and plate these because we're going to use them later. Now we're going to turn the heat down to a little bit more medium. We're going to chuck in our onions and our chopped green chili. And that already smells delicious. There we go. Remember guys, as you're cooking, rinse while you go. It'll make washing the dishes that much easier when you're done. And anybody living in the house appreciates it. So always, you know, at least rinse while you go, at a minimum. So we're just going to take this like so. We're going to turn the heat down. Now I'm going to grab just a tiny little bit of butter. Not a lot, just a little bit. Oh, nope, camera is clear. Cool. I'll be right back. Now this is just unsalted natural butter. It's nothing fancy. You can use margarine, you can use whatever you would like. But we're just going to put a little bit in there. Not too much. And what you're doing is you're just letting it sweat over the onions. So once the butter is good and melty, and the onions have sweat for a bit, and the chili has sweat for a little bit, basically once the butter's melted, I'm going to throw in the steak. Now, this is just flank steak. So the trick with flank steak is you take it and you slice it, because it usually comes in a chunk like this, right? So you slice it in half this way, and then you go ahead and you season it for the next day. So you season it ahead of time, and while you do that, you just leave it overnight at a minimum, just overnight. So before you go to bed, season your meat, and when you wake up in the morning, you can rock out like that. So that flavor has really gotten in there. I do apologize, usually I have a little plate off to the side just to, you know, keep from making a giant mess on the counter. So as you can see here, the butter's almost melted. You know, you can go wild with these, and you can cook them until the onions are almost caramelized. It's easier to do on an electric stove than it is to do on a gas stove, I've found, because you've got more temperature range and you can really turn the temp down without burning it. So one of the things I'm going to be picking up is a small electric hot plate like you always see them use on the shows. That's why you always see them do that on the different cooking channels on YouTube. Everybody's got a different style. Again, this channel is all about using what you got to make the best meal that you can possibly make. This is not the healthiest breakfast in the world, but it's not the worst breakfast in the world either. So we're going to go ahead and start putting our meat in. Make sure it doesn't clump up, and as you can see, they're just nice thin. You know, you want it to cook pretty quick. It's breakfast, you just woke up, you're hungry. And you don't want to overcook this. So you just wait on the onions to do their thing. And just kind of throw your meat in. And once I'm done putting the meat in, I'm actually going to crank the temperature a little bit, just to kind of get a nice little sear on these. I'm doing this in the kitchen for this particular video. The way that I normally do it is I'll actually do all of this outside on the grill. And I do it outside on the grill because it makes a lot less of a mess, and it does a better job putting a nice sear on the beef. You can also use chicken, you can also use pork, you know, whatever you have handy. I just happen to have some flank steak because it's super cheap, and I had it. I'm burning off all the groceries I have in the house, before I start buying diety type food. So this is kind of part of that. So now we got everything in there. Got a little bit of separation between everything. We don't want to waste this leftover spice. So let's go ahead and scrape it out. Just put it on the onions there. Now we're just going to kind of let it do its thing for a little bit. This video is going to be a little bit longer than some of my other videos, so I do want to apologize. But I want to show you guys just how quick you can do it. So now I'm turning up the temperature, and we're going to see what she does. So what I'm going to do is put you guys over on time lapse, and then when it's done, we'll come back. Alrighty, we're back. So as you can see, we got a nice little char on it. And you're cooking it to a nice medium. You're not cooking it fully. So now we're going to use the hot pan just to kind of warm up a couple of tortillas. Nothing fancy. Just use the energy that you've already created to warm these up. And all you're going to do when these warm up is they're going to make it a little bit easier to fold it. That's all. Unfortunately, I don't have any shredded cheese. All I have left over right now at the moment is some sliced white aged cheddar, so that's what we're going to be using for cheese. Nothing particularly fancy. That's all it is. So you're just going to break you off a couple. If this is the type of cheese you have, just break you a couple little chunks like so, and that's what you're going to use. This is not American cheese. This is just nice white aged cheddar. Happens to be one of my favorites. Perfect for a sandwich. Now, you can add tomatoes to it if you want. You can add more vegetables to it if you want. You can add all kinds of stuff. This is just a simple, basic recipe that you can now take. We're going to go ahead and turn these over. That you can just take and use any way that you want. And you'll find that I do that a lot on the channel because everybody has a different preference. Everybody likes different stuff, right? So this is just the generic how to make it type thing. All right, so this one's nice and warm. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna take us a little bit of the egg here, just kind of tear it off. And we're just going to lay it down the center. Like so. And we're going to break up the cheese just a little bit more. Put a little cheese. And we're going to put our meat and onions. Like so. There you go. Just going to take it, kind of fold the bottom, and then you're just going to wrap it up. And now from this point, if you want to cook the tortilla a little bit, you can. It'll kind of melt the cheese, make everything nice. What I like to do is come over here to the battle toaster and, keeping the wrap side down, put it into the battle toaster. So I'm going to do that for all 3 of these. Again, this is nothing fancy. This is just a quick, you know, handy dandy recipe. And the leftover meat that you have goes awesome on a salad, which I'm going to do a little bit later on today. I'm going to show you guys how to make a simple, kind of a Russian Ukrainian style salad. Again, same thing, just fold the bottom, pull it over to one side, pull it over to the other, and then when you put it, you put the fold side down, because that's the part that you kind of want to toast a little bit. And I'll move the camera over there here in a second just to show you. Now I got the last one. Again, just put your egg, some cheese. This one will be super cheesy, I guess. Put your meat. Now, if you don't take the time to warm up your tortilla shells before you try this, so we decided at the last moment we're going to add a little bit of refried beans to it, to give it a little bit more fiber, a little bit more substance. As you can see, I'm not adding many. You can make your own, or you can get them out of the can. I got them out of a pouch. They are, however, quite good. We're just going to wrap that back up and very carefully we're going to pull out the toaster rack. And we're just going to do the same for the rest of them. I'm using the refried beans just to kind of take a little bit of the salt out of the flavor. I put a little bit too much salt on it when I was seasoning the meat. That was my fault. I tried not to add any, but I mean, you have to add some salt when you season it, or else it just doesn't come out right. So it's not overly bad, but it's not the best either. So we're just gonna go ahead and reassemble that. Now we've got our last one. And we're just adding it off to the side. But it doesn't really matter because it's all going to roll up in there anyway. All right. That's it. Now once you toast it, it'll give it just a little bit of crunch, and it'll give it a nice flavor. Nobody likes cold food, usually. And we'll be back when it's done toasting. You can put it in a regular oven. You can actually just put them back into the pan and cook them in the pan on a low heat, and it'll accomplish the same thing. You're just basically trying to cook the flour tortilla so that it doesn't fall apart while you eat it. That's all you're doing. You'll find that, especially with flour tortillas, they'll tear. So I'm just gonna fold that cheese back in there so we don't make a giant mess. Now you can see we've got them going here in the battle toaster. I'm gonna switch it over to grill. I'm gonna set it for about 10 minutes or so. And we'll be back with some nice toasty burritos after the camera fall. Alrighty, so a few minutes later, and we're toasted. Look at that. Ouch, that's hot. Ouch, hot. Go ahead and get this out of here. Alrighty. So now we got a little bit of a gooey cheese. And we're gonna try it. That's perfect. The beans pulled the salt out, so the meat's not as salty now. It just balances it nicely. And this is a great, fairly high protein breakfast that will serve you well if you're working out, for example. Things like that. Like me, I'm trying to lose my weight, which, as you can see, I'm not even sucking it in anymore. It's working awesome. So, just a simple breakfast burrito here from ETA Kitchen. Love you, Mr. Pandar and Mr. Llama.